And so then, what you can do is you can then choose what items you want to add to the journal. So let's say you want to add notes that you taken from the student. You want to add websites that they accessed that day. You want to add, how they did on the survey that you sent out or the quizzes you sent out. You can add all of those different items to the student journal. And so then at the end of the day, you will have the ability to share out that journal with the students at the end of the day, or at the end of the week, or again during parent-teacher conferences. So you can actually track in a PDF file along the way how students are doing. Other things you can add is certainly you can take screenshots, you can add files, so homework files to the journal. So we have the capability of doing that. Plus you can type in a quick note. You can say, on this day, Susan was doing a really great job, and I want to call that out. You can actually add additional notes, or you can also add notes that maybe a key project is due next Tuesday, or that TCAP testing is going to happen the first week of March. So you have all kinds of ways of adding notes into this PDF file, and then if you want to use that journal by student, you can certainly do that.
And how do you make that?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
How do you make that per student? So you'd actually click on them and then do the journal from there.
Right, so it does it, so by default, it does it for everyone. So you can't do it just one student at a time. So if you turn on the journal feature, by default then you will get a journal for every student in that class.
Okay. So how do you make it specific to a student?
So just like when it captures the homework, you would then, how it captured there was Johnson and then it had the name of the rainbows file that I gathered
right.
from the homework. You would have a PDF by student, and then when you want to add something for that student, you actually have to select them, right? So you come in and you highlight over them. So I'm going to talk about Johnson, who's in my class, and then I want to add something to Johnson's journal. So when you're highlighting them, then you get to add very specific notes. And by default, it will capture, so like, right now, let's say I wanted to capture the survey results. So when I say add survey results and I don't have anybody else highlighted, it would add the answer that they did on that survey or that quiz immediately for everyone. So again, you wouldn't have to do that by student. Let's say I wanted to track their keywords list or their whiteboard usage, or again, any notes that they've taken during the class. I could select that globally, and then by default, it would be for every student. It would gather that, so I wouldn't have to go in and just add it for Johnson. But if I want to add something very specific to Johnson for that day, then that's when you highlight him, or whichever student, and then you type in your initial note. Additionally, you can show your desktop. So let's say that there's something on your desktop, kind of how I'm showing you today. I'm obviously remote streaming my desktop through a tool so you guys can see. I would be able to show my desktop to all the students. I would be able to show a video to my students. I could show a replay of a file. So let's say it's a file that I've gathered that's on my system. I could show a replay of that to my students. Or I could just select an individual application. Let's say I just wanted to show them PowerPoint, or I just wanted to show them Excel, or some other application. I could just show all of my students that application that's residing on my desktop and show it out. The other thing I can do is I can let a student share their desktop with me and the rest of the class. So I can go into what's called exhibit mode, and then I select a student from within the list and say, okay, I want Johnson to now exhibit out to everybody else's tablet what he's working on. And so you can actually go into exhibit mode, choose the student, choose exhibit, and then their desktop shares out to everybody else in the class as well. So this is a way of sharing homework or sharing results from students that they're working on their individual tablets or laptops. Any questions on that? My recommendation, by the way, is use it sparingly. Obviously, you don't want to turn their tablets or laptops into televisions, right? It's not really designed to be just a consumption device. And obviously today you're probably sharing information up on the board. You're probably using an overhead. Continue to use that. But if there's certain things like we have a biology teacher who uses this to show how to dissect a frog, and it gets very detailed. Obviously, if you want you to be able to see the fine closer up detail, show from your system to theirs through this feature. So certainly use it for those kind of things. But I wouldn't recommend using it every day just to share out your desktop on something that you would have normally shared on the other end. Okay, so then, a few other things that you're allowed to do or you're capable of doing, I shouldn't say allowed, but capable of, is you can manage desktops. So you can manage everybody's system. So let's say at the end of the day, and you want to power everyone's systems off, you can do that. So you can come in and say, power off every student, or just power off selected students. So let's say you just want to, power reboot, one person's system. You have the capability of doing that. But if you just want to make sure that no devices are used, they're not even, locked, because you just don't want them to all be off, you have the capability from the teacher's point of view to come in and say power off. And then they will all power off and then disappear off the class. You can also, in certain circumstances, remote power on everybody's system. This becomes a little bit more tricky because what you would have to do is have it locked down to a specific class. So I don't see that you would probably use the power on feature much. But certainly you could use the power off feature or the reboot feature in your class if you wanted to. You have the ability to quick launch applications for students. So let's say, again, going back to Khan Academy as an example. So let's say I want all of my students to go out to Khan Academy. We're going to be using it today for our lesson. I can have it under what's called a quick launch and have it here, and then I can just push it out to everyone. And then what will happen is on the student side, you'll see that it's actually able to go out and launch an application. So right now, I actually have Internet Explorer blocked. You'll see it's not an application that's approved, and so it actually won't allow it to quick launch. So if I come back in and I allow Internet Explorer from an application point of view, so let's say I want to add, well actually I'll just turn off restrictions for right now just to save time. But if I wanted to add Internet Explorer, I could add it here and then be able to quick launch Khan Academy. And then if I come over to the student side, you'll see that it immediately takes them to the Khan Academy webpage. And if you have a specific long URL that you want to launch, that you know that they can't type in or you don't want them searching for or whatever, you have the capability of doing that, pushing it out to everybody else in the system, or in your class rather, and then you don't have to wait for them to type, that web address or to everybody start up their Internet Explorer browser and then type it in. You would be able to push it out very quickly to your students. So unfortunately, my virtual machines are actually not on the internet, so they can't see the internet. But it would take me to Khan Academy's webpage if I had remote launched it. If I was a student and I was taken here and now I want to go to Facebook while we're in class, I could try to do that as well, and it would actually block that application. So it would not allow me to go to Facebook based on the fact that it's a blocked web page. So if you remember back here, Facebook was a restricted web page. It would not allow me to go. So it would tell the student that it was not approved website. You can do the same thing, by the way, for applications. And really to do this, all you do is click on Add an Item and say, I want to add a web page. So you click on Add Web Page, you cut and paste, or type in the URL you want to add. You can create your own description for it. So let's say I wanted to add www.hp.com. on, whatever web page it is. And then it's immediately here available for me to go back to and launch. Any questions on the quick launch feature? Any questions on anything that we've covered so far, or other questions as you looked at the tool and you have around the application?
Can I ask a question about the survey questions?
Yes.
You said you could do it on the fly, or you could have questions already typed up. Where are those? Like, how would you do that if you had, say, 5 questions that they had to answer before they left class?
So you could do it one or two different ways. You could either have individual questions here, right? And it really, again, to come here, you don't even have to be in class, right? So if you just start up your class, let's say you're at home, and you have 5 questions you want them to answer during class. You could come in at home. Let me go ahead and close out of it. You could come in your whatever class that happens to be, trigonometry class as an example, and you would come down and you would type in your question. So, this is question 1, and then you would type in whatever the responses would need to be. Let's say it's a true or false question. And then all you do is add. And then tomorrow when you come into class, if you click on the question down here on the left-hand side, you'll see all of your list of questions that you have available to push out to students.
Okay.
So you can do it that way. The other way, and this is getting into a little bit more complexity, but a great feature of the tool is you can actually start to then create lesson plans. So let's say you want to manage a lesson plan or create a lesson plan, you would be able to kind of do this ahead of time. So let's say you do all of this work ahead of time, and you create a brand new lesson plan. So you come in and say, I want to create a new lesson plan, and I want to add into it, we're going to have a test, and we're going to run a test, and it's going to take, 10 minutes. And I'm going to, lock everybody's computer at a certain time of the day. And you would be able to create your lesson plan. You would be able to set everything up in here ahead of time, and then save it so that when tomorrow you come in, you can just load up that lesson plan and all of the information that you've already done, the websites you want to access, the applications you want to access, the quiz or the survey questions you want to access, you would have all of this in here for that lesson plan. And then you could have an entirely different lesson plan for your next class, and you would be able to load up that lesson plan. My recommendation is, on the lesson plan, give yourself more time than you think, because what it is it's really time-based. So it moves through the lesson plan automatically for you. So if you say at 20 past the hour, it's going to lock everybody's tablet. At 20 minutes past the hour, it really will. So give yourself a little bit more time, and then you can actually advance through the lesson plan as you're going, instead of letting it dictate to you. That's my only big advice. But then you can actually save off lesson plans. So let's say I've created this lesson plan, and I want to save it. You can actually save off the lesson plan. This is, again, algebra 101 or whatever you want to call it. You save it, and it saves it as a .nlp file. And then you can actually go back and load up that lesson plan at any point. You can even share lesson plans between teachers. So if your entire lesson plan is accessing different websites and content that's stored in a share folder somewhere that everybody has access to, you would be able to share those lesson plans out between teachers, because all it is an individual file. So any questions, thoughts on that before I move forward? Again, a lot of it, the best way to learn, as you guys probably already know by any other application you use, is to get some hands-on. And so, my goal today is to introduce you to the application, try to address basic features and functionality, gets you to a point where you can start to use it, and then as you start to use it, I would love to come back and, like I said, in a week to 10 days, and then give you the opportunity to ask all the questions that you've come up with and how you've tried to use it for the last week or so. So do you guys have any other questions? Like I said, you're a quiet bunch. Not typical for teachers.
They're thinking.
While you're thinking, let me show you just a couple of other things. Maybe this will spawn some questions. Let's go to the student side for a moment. So, here again, this shows you that they try to access Facebook. It tells them that it's not allowed and that they're only allowed to access certain websites. So again, this lets them know exactly what's going on. So let's say I'm a student and I'm working on an assignment. And we know that there are students today who refuse to ask for help. They don't want to let everybody else in the class know that they don't understand something. So through the tool, they can actually throw a lifeline, what it's called is a life preserver or a lifeline. They can actually come on their side and say, listen, I need help. I don't want to tell everybody else in the class that I need help, but I need help. So I'm going to throw a lifeline and say, I'm stuck on a problem. And I want to alert the teacher. So I'm going to say, I need help. And I'm going to say, okay, alert them. And then what's going to happen is on the teacher's side, you're going to notice Johnson's turned yellow. And you're going to notice on this screen, Johnson's turned yellow. And you're going to notice on this screen, Johnson's turned yellow. That's going to tell you that they're asking for some help. So then you can come in and you can say, okay, I want to see what kind of help Johnson needs. So I can view the client, I can start to chat back and forth, I can go over to their desk and start to help them, but I have the capability of knowing when they ask for help. I can start a chat session with them. So maybe I want to chat with them and start to walk through the problem. I have the capability of doing that. And have a very private conversation between the teacher and the student on trying to solve a problem or answer a question for the student, and not let everybody else in the class know that student doesn't do it. So it, again, allows for very intimate conversation back and forth for those shy students who don't want everybody else to know that they're struggling. Additionally, the student can come in and they can see what kind of internet access they have. They can come in and see what kind of applications that they can access. So they're told exactly what is going on, what they have access to and what they don't have access to. So they see this toolbar at the top. There may be some times where you don't even want them to have access to that toolbar. You have the capability of turning that off. So you'll see up here on the toolbar that you have, or it says student toolbar, you can actually click that off, and when you do, it actually disappears from their system. It doesn't mean HP Classroom Manager is not still running. It obviously is, but it's not taking up any amount of disk space on their side, and it won't allow them to ask for help, or it won't allow them to use that toolbar, but it still allows you to have complete control over their system. Did that spawn any questions that you guys have? Let me ask you this. Has any of you guys, especially the teachers, any of the three teachers, have you used this already? Have you started to play with it? Started to look around at it at all?
No.
No.
I have used a similar program called NetSupport
Right.
with my computers in my classroom. So
And
most of this I already know.
And in the media center, I've used Land School, and so
Okay, so you've land school before. So it's obviously the concepts are very similar, right? I mean, the layout may be slightly different, or the icon may be slightly different, but I think the concepts you'll see are very similar.
right.
Yeah, when the
Why
class,
not-
let me ask you a
Go ahead.
question. When the class is over, the students are going to have to unconnect from the teacher?
So it's actually up to the teacher to end class. So what the teacher would do is, the class is all done, you come in where it says manage class on the left-hand side, and you end class. And now they're all kicked out of your class. And so then it's time for you to move on to your next class, and if your next class happens to be trigonometry or whatever you're moving on to, you would then have the ability to start your new class, and then it would only be students who type in trigonometry that would then join that class.
Will it save from day to day?
It will save these classes that you see here, yes.
But, I mean, on the student tablet.
No, so on the student tablet, they're gonna have to type that in at the beginning of every class.
Okay.
Because we're not creating a class list on their side, they're gonna always have to type that in to join your class.
But even if they had a class list, they'd still have to check the class. They'd have to go, bring a drop down and go find their class and click on it.
Exactly, exactly. They would still have to select which class they're going into. So here's what I would recommend then, because I obviously don't want to take up your time for no purpose. My recommendation is, let's start to use it. But, obviously, if you use net support, you know how this works. If you use land school, you have some idea. But start to use it, and then let's reconvene in a week to 10 days. And then if you have a list of questions or whatever, we can certainly go through them. I want to make sure you feel comfortable with the solution. But obviously, that'll give you time to get some hands-on with it, and then see what additional questions you may have.
It's probably a good plan.
Okay. So I'll work offline with you guys to get that scheduled. And then in the meantime, what I would like to also do is set up a separate session just for your IT folks to talk about the tech console and what you can use the tech console for. Because what you can actually use it for, very similar to being able to use all the technology, is from your IT side, you could actually monitor your entire school, right? You'd be able to see all the different students who are logged in currently. You could take over remote control over one of their systems to fix the problem, so they don't actually have to bring the tablet to you or the laptop to you, as long as the laptop boots up. So you would be able to diagnose, and from an IT help desk point of view, manage your devices, your student devices and your teacher devices through what's called the tech console, using the exact same technology kind of behind the scenes. But it would be more beneficial for your IT folks, and I don't think your teachers would care that much.
So teachers, you think you can go back tomorrow or Monday and see if you can get your students? Well, let me ask you a question. What happens if a student or a tablet just won't log on to the teachers?
If it, for whatever reason, let's say they typed it in the wrong way or it just won't log on, the teacher can actually manually add that student in. So you'll see where it says here, manage class, you can do a refresh. You can actually go out and hunt for students who are wayward students, so to speak. They're out there, but they're not connected to anything. And then it'll bring up a list of those wayward students. And then you can actually drag that student into the class.
Okay.
It's very rare that I've ever seen that happen. Usually that only happens if, it's fallen off the network and it doesn't have a valid ID or something. But you could actually force it into the class.
Before you cut off, hang on just a second.
Absolutely.
Well, we may need to get with you again, Charlie, because we're not having much luck on our wireless network. We had to jump through all kinds of hoops to try to get this thing to work because of the way the servers, the naming servers are. And I'm not so sure, I gotta look at a couple of their tablets, but they may not have installed with all the name server information in them right. And I don't know
Well,
why
yeah.
I did that.
You could send me the Client 32 INI, I can compare them for you if you want. I believe, if I remember correctly, that's where you're storing the information. You're not storing it in the registry key.
Well, when it does the install, it was in a directory, and in that directory was all the information. And
Right.
when you ran it from that directory, it was supposed to put all the information in there. It looks like that information is not being populated. I need to look in those directories and follow up, but I may need to talk to you about that.
Okay, yeah, certainly, Neil, come to me anytime. You have my cell phone number. You also have my email. Certainly don't hesitate to reach out. I'll be glad to help you.
Okay.
Will do then. Anybody else have any other questions? Well, we thank you very much, Charlie.
Certainly, and like I said, let's work offline. Let's get another one of these scheduled with your teachers after they've used it. We'll set up a separate one for your ID.
Okay, we'll do it.
I'll send you some proposed times, and you let me know how those work.
Okay, that'll be fine.